So today we're going to be talking to Hazell Mullins, who is a self-employed dairy farmer, large animal vet, the current president of Veterinary Ireland and Alpha Wealth client. We're going to be speaking to Hazell about her journey transitioning to becoming self-employed and her experience managing her personal finances all whilst running her own business and building a house. Hopefully there'll be some really useful takeaways in our discussions for listeners who might be in a similar position. Hi Hazell, thanks a million for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, David?
I'm not too bad.
Good. Thank you for having me on the podcast. It's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we've been talking a lot over the last couple of months on various areas, and we've been following your story quite closely online. But for anyone who's listening in that might not be too familiar with you, would you mind just giving us a quick backstory as to who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year, but I am Hazell Mullins. I am a dairy farmer and also a large animal vet, and also current president of Veterinary Ireland. So I have a lot of, pots that I put my fingers in, and it's
busy woman.
Busy, yeah. So we're just coming out of spring now, finished calving, and it's been a tough year with the weather, and definitely compared to when I first started farming full time last year, it's a completely different scene, and it's just strange how the weather can have such an impact on finances as well as and stress levels and all of this. But yeah, so I left my full time veterinary role last February, so February 2023, and I became self-employed. I joined the family business, so joined my dad on the farm, a dairy farm in Carricknavar. And yeah, so that was over a year ago now. And so I have a large animal locomine business, and I do a little bit of social media work, and then also president of Veterinary Ireland since November last year. So it's a new role. Settling into it now, exciting, generally lots of media opportunities, and it's just an honour to be the president of an organisation that I've been part of for the last 10 years as well. So yeah, lots going on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, as you mentioned, the weather's been fairly miserable, so we won't talk too much about that because we'll be here all day. But obviously, look, you've been speaking to Alpha Wealth for a number of years now. We've had a lot of conversations on different areas, as I said, but with your own journey kind of transitioning to become self-employed a while back, what prompted you initially to maybe reach out and seek financial advice or talk to Alpha Wealth?
Yeah, so it's a funny one. The roles are reversed now a little bit because I'm on your podcast, but Nick was on my podcast about 4 years ago, and he was on the VetSpace Ireland podcast, which I ran with my business partner Michelle Maguire, and yeah, he approached us and he wanted to reach out to the veterinary community and spread the word about Alpha Wealth. And it was then that I realised we were chatting through different things on the podcast, and I realised, I definitely am not in control of my finances, and I definitely could be doing a lot more with my money. I was full-time POE at the time, full-time employment. I had a few maybe small side hustles, but there was, that was my main job as a large animal vet, and I definitely wasn't putting my money in the right places. And I could tell from speaking with Nick on the podcast that I really needed to ring him afterwards. And I even said on the podcast, Nick, I think we need a chat off air maybe. And he was like, absolutely. So that's how we became, involved. And I suppose that's the partnership began then. And it's been a really nice and easy kind of transition that I made from being employed to self-employed, because I had the support of Nick and yourself and the team in Alpha Wealth. But yeah, it's so I've had both sides of the coin. I've been a client being self-employed, and I've also been full-time employment, so it's both. And my Nick's advice has changed actually between the two roles, because my circumstances has changed so much. So it was good to have that advice, and I don't think I would have felt so comfortable making the transition without the support there from Alpha Wealth. So
yeah,
definitely.
Thank you. No worries at all. Look, it's a pleasure dealing with you, Hazell, and it is important obviously to have somebody just to use as a sounding board, because we'll all go through different kind of various stages of our financial life cycle, and it's about kind of adjusting your plans and what you're doing to that specific point in time. But from a kind of personal finance perspective, obviously you're involved in a lot of things. You seem like you have a very busy schedule, and I find that myself when I'm speaking to clients who might be, self-employed or business owners, they get so caught up in the kind of the day-to-day and the busyness of the running the business that sometimes they forget to just kind of, zoom out, take a look at their own personal finances, look how they're structured, and make sure that they're making the right moves for their kind of financial future. How have you felt it? I suppose what has your experience been kind of juggling the two in terms of kind of running the business, but also trying to, I suppose, make the right moves with your own personal finances?
Yeah, it's been a transition because you don't have that lovely paycheck every month, and that security that paycheck brings, and you do have to go out and graft for every single cent that you earn. And I have a new appreciation for money. I now look at something, say that's €100, and I kind of think, okay, well, that took how many hours to make that €100? And I think before, when I was full-time employed, I probably didn't have that mindset, and it's probably helped because now I don't spend as frivolously as I used to. Now I do treat myself every now and again, and I do think it's a balance between, looking at money, looking what you can spend, and maybe, if you want to treat yourself to something and, you save up for something, that it's okay to treat yourself. And I think, we've talked about it before, it's okay to have, the odd nice thing. And but definitely I have really looked at my spending, and I kind of account for everything, whereas before I probably was spending mindlessly and didn't really, plan too much for the future. Now I need to kind of think, okay, I don't have a constant income every month. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. Okay, do I have enough money next month to pay for certain things? And yeah, it's a balance, and it's an interesting kind of transition. Look, I suppose I'm lucky because I have the farm as well, so that's like a family business, and I'm part of that. And then I have my self-employed business, my locally business. So I have two kind of incomes really. So yeah, so for spring I was full-time farming, so my income has been much more reduced because I haven't been out working as a vet. But come middle of April now, kind of next week, I will be out vetting again. So it's kind of that relief that, okay, it's been a couple of tough months, but hopefully things will improve over the next couple of months then financially.
Yeah, so I suppose in a way you were kind of almost forced into adopting a lot of kind of good financial habits that a lot of people maybe struggle with, things like, kind of budgeting, putting money aside for the rainy day, or, times of the year when you mightn't be as busy and the income mightn't be as kind of steadily flowing. One part of your journey obviously is building a house all whilst taking the jumping into trying to become self-employed, I suppose, and managing a business. A lot of people are very hesitant going to self-employed before they, I suppose, get on the property ladder and, take out the mortgage and all that. Were you PAYE individual when you got your mortgage, or did you move to becoming self-employed before that?
Yeah, I was PAYE when I got my mortgage. So it just happened that a couple of months later that an opportunity came up then to kind of come home. I was working up the country as a vet, and I think the commute, trying to build a house as well and everything, it just all worked out that really it was the best thing for me and my own well-being that I kind of came home and tried something different. But I was full-time employed when I got my mortgage, which was it made the process a lot easier. I think you probably know more than I do. Is it 2 years of accounts that you need generally?
Typically I suppose we speak to a lot of people that are trying to maybe transition to becoming self-employed, but they also have plans in the short term to maybe get a mortgage and start to build or purchase a house. And the advice is usually, if you can at all, just stay, I suppose, as a payaway individual in a permanent position in a company until the dust is settled and you get your mortgage and you get your house. Because the banks will typically, as you said, look for 2 years maybe history or accounts of you, I suppose, being in that self-employed position, because it's all about kind of track record with the banks, and they want some bit of, I suppose, evidence that you can meet those commitments going forward. So that is typically the advice we give. Absolutely,
they definitely require a lot of evidence of a lot of things. Even when you're full-time employed as well, like, and a mortgage, anyone that's probably gone through it knows the forms, and they're like, oh, we put the wrong address on this, or because my address actually is spelt 2 different ways, so I had to fill in so many forms because some forms spelt it with a Balnagluck with an A and with a U, and like they're so I suppose strict on so many things that it's a process no matter what, where,
Yeah.
what you make of it. So it's definitely, yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted, the whole mortgage process. I know my husband kind of gave it to me as my little project, which was very kind of him. But he did thank me, and he said, "Only for you." I don't think we would, because I just think he would have. I didn't approach a mortgage broker. I did it, all the forms and all the kind of research myself, and I actually rang a mortgage broker. Actually, Nick recommended one that and I rang him, and he asked me at the time, okay, what are you thinking? And I went through all the different rates, and I went through, like, I had it all written out, and he was like, okay, I think you've done all the work already, and you don't really need me anymore. So I was like, oh, have I? So yeah, I like maths. I love, like, looking at different, so it kind of was just something that suited me. And like, not everyone, I do think, like, I have a friend who went through mortgage broker and found it very, very useful, and look, each their own, but I suppose that's my type of brain. I liked it, and we just kind of went with it and got there in the end.
Yeah, and I think one point you mentioned there is, particularly in Ireland, it is really important to shop around, because a lot of providers don't reward you with loyalty. So it is important to get into the habit of trying to get the cheapest mortgage rate, the cheapest loan rate, looking around at various policies and trying to switch. We mentioned obviously the amount of forms or the amount of hoops you have to jump through from the banks. I think that's why a lot of people are probably a bit turned off changing mortgage, but it can 100% be worth it, and you can save quite a lot of money, particularly given the period we've just gone through in the last 12 to 18 months, where interest rates have increased a lot. A lot of people now, particularly people on trackers, are maybe paying a lot every month in their repayments, and they might have an option to switch on to a lower rate. So even though you do have to jump through a couple of hoops and print out bank statements and pay slips and stuff like that, at the end of the day, it's more money going back into your pocket and reducing your expenses, which is obviously very important.
Yeah, and actually I was taking out mine at that real volatile part, like that time when the interest rates were low, and then you could see them steadily increasing, and even the advice that I got from 1 month to the next was just like, so 1 month it was, take out maybe 1 or 2 years at a fixed rate and then change, and then it became, oh no, lock in for as long as you can at the lower rate, and it was so, like, volatile. So that was maybe 14 months ago now, and it was just so it's always good to keep up with the trends and making sure that you kind of understand, and if you don't understand, seek advice, because it's just, you could get yourself into a lot of financial difficulty otherwise. So.
Definitely. I see it from my side. I think a lot of people in Ireland are struggling to adjust to this new higher interest rate environment. They're not really aware that this tracker rate that they've benefited from many years now, which has been in and around maybe less than 1% or 1%. Those days are gone. And maybe the 5.5% rate that you're paying now might go down, but it's never going to go back down. Well, not anytime soon, back to the 1%. So it's about making decisions based on the situation we're in now. The same can be said from savings rates. We see a lot of people in Ireland today still have a lot of money sitting in bank, credit union, and plus paying little to no interest. But interest rates have gone up, and there are alternative savings options out there in the Irish market now, where savers can get 2, 3, 4% from kind of different bank and deposit rates. So it is really about just accepting that we are in different territory, and you do need to adjust your plans and get the right advice to really benefit.
Yeah, exactly. So savings really is my next port of call. I had a meeting with Nick about a month ago, and we just kind of said that, look, when the locoming kind of picks up again now, that I'm really going to start looking at different saving options, because I was very much in the bank, saving money, not earning a lot of interest, just trying to get to that mortgage deposit. And actually, maybe, I know from definitely that time when I was on the podcast with Nick, I was like, okay, maybe my money isn't in the best place, but I was so near the mortgage at that stage that probably it wasn't worth my while. But if I had maybe met Nick 10 years ago, it would have been a different story. And I just think for any, like, I always, I wish I had approached someone 10 years ago when I first started working. And that's kind of, I meet a lot of young vets now. I'm actually going to UCD in a couple of days to talk to kind of final years. And I really want to kind of put the message across that you don't have to be in your 30s to start thinking about savings and pensions and insurance and income protection and all that. Now, I was very lucky. I always had income protection, just by chance, actually, I met someone at a talk, a veterinary talk, and they were talking about it, how important it was. And, you know, it just kind of resonated with me, okay, this is important. But I think there's a lot of, I suppose my profession is veterinary, but there's a lot of, you know, obviously young professionals out there that you know, don't probably know that they should be starting that little bit earlier. And yeah, that's one piece of advice I would have said. I would have loved to, even just the savings account, just to maybe think outside the box, you know, not that just it's the bank, you know, or, you know, look at the different savings that are available.
Definitely, yeah. You touched on income protection, and what I always say is like people will need or want various different financial products at different stages in their life. But I think income protection is the one product that you can apply to pretty much everyone's situation, because whether you're saving for a house, paying for a mortgage, you know, saving for your kids' education, paying the utility bills, the shopping, everything we pay for on a daily basis is all coming from our income. So I suppose if you don't have insurance in place to protect your most important asset, which is of course your income, like, you know, you're really exposing yourself. And it's funny nowadays because people have insurance for their iPhones and their pets and all these various devices, but they're often, I suppose, ignoring to insure the most important thing, which is essentially your income.
Yeah. And especially when you're out, you know, dealing with mad animals and cattle and like myself, it was definitely a must. And you know, just even looking at the different options between, you know, I was on day one, so if I had an injury, I was getting paid from my day one of injury, or there's 4 weeks or 8 weeks, and you know, my injuries were probably going to be broken bones if I was, you know. So luckily I broke a finger once, and my I didn't have to. I was put on admin duties in work, which is a lot of phone calls to farmers and trying to, it was an interesting couple of weeks, but luckily I didn't need it. But if I did, it was there. And it was just nice when it happened. Then I was sitting in the hospital kind of knowing that I had that security and I was okay. But yeah, it's just one of those things that, and it's tax relief as well on it, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So depending on the income that you're earning, you can qualify for either 20% relief on the premiums or 40% relief on the premiums. So it is a very cost effective I suppose product to have. And the key thing about income protection is it provides long-term protection. So if you're, let's say, in your 30s and you have a bad illness or an accident that sees you out of work for a couple of years or even indefinitely, it'll keep paying you that income until a point where you're either fit to return to work or you reach maybe retirement age. So it basically ensures or replaces what's missing.
Yeah. So I think it was, look, I don't have it now because I've changed my circumstances. So it wasn't, and it was after, but I was very glad that I had it when I was, you know, in full-time employment. So it was now, and it was Nick actually told me about the tax relief. I don't think I knew. So these kind of things, like, you know, you hear about them, but then you kind of forget about them. So actually when you have a financial advisor, they're actually kind of saying, oh, have you, you know, make sure that you claim back your tax on that, or, you know, maybe that's not the best insurance to have. Did you look at a different policy? So Nick always kind of looks at my health insurance, making sure that it's the right one that for me. I have kind of a serious illness cover as well. You know, there's different bits and pieces that you know, he's just making sure that they're the right fit. And I think sometimes we can be paying insurances that mightn't be the right fit, like saying paying income protection but not knowing that it's 8 weeks and actually a broken bone is fixed in 8 weeks. So maybe you need something that's 4 weeks or less or something like that. So yeah, it's just those little things that, you know, make the difference.
Definitely, I think it's really important to always review your situation and make sure that, you know, how you're structured is completely appropriate to your particular situation. And obviously times change and circumstances change, which is why it's important to, you know, deal with a professional ongoing to make sure that you are making the right moves moving forward with your own situation. So obviously, look, we talked about, you know, mortgages and income protection, and, you know, as I said, people will need or want various different financial products over their financial life cycle. But now that you're maybe, you know, a bit more adjusted to becoming self-employed, you've a couple of years running your own business, maybe the mortgage and the house, the dust is settled on that front. Are there any kind of, you know, future plans that you have in mind, or areas that you kind of want to focus on beyond that?
Yeah, so the savings is definitely one thing. So maybe a long-term savings plan, maybe for, you know, 5 years or more, or, you know, something in the future. And I definitely think pension is probably something
the
that
dreaded P word.
the big P. I did have a pension in my old job, and it was there was a contribution from my employer, and so Nick has kind of talked through my options with that pension, and kind of what to do with that pot of money.
Yeah.
So we're kind of still kind of thinking, I kind of really want to reinvest it and do something with it. But it was a good pension, but obviously because I left the job, I kind of have to decide what to do. And at the moment, pension is probably just down my list of priorities because I'm still getting used to my new financial circumstances and everything, but it's definitely something in the future. And just for anyone out there that, the pressure of the pension word, it just, look, it's something that doesn't have to be like a huge thing. I just wish that maybe I even had put €100 away 10 years ago, and I would have had a lot more money in the bank, in the pot now. And I kind of think, I was in a coffee shop actually the other day, and there was these girls, they had just, I think they were doing their masters, but they were kind of going in towards employment. And one of the girls said, Mum was talking to me, and she asked me, she was saying, I should start a pension. Like, I'm not 35, Mum, and I actually was there kind of in the coffee shop going, oh my God, if you only knew. If you only knew. So yeah, I just think there's that attitude maybe that, okay, you have to reach 30. And then I'll think about it. And that was my complete attitude. And I really wish that I had it, had met you guys earlier and maybe had discussed things a little bit earlier. And I know I'm repeating it now, but just to get that mindset. And I do think it is changing a little bit. Younger people are probably starting. You probably see that.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of information out online that people are probably benefiting from that wasn't there before. I still think maybe, the education system in Ireland could probably, teach personal finances a bit better to people from an earlier age, but definitely I think things are improving. There is a big emphasis, you're right, on people starting pensions nowadays, particularly with the focus on pensions auto enrolment that the government are bringing in. And you're right, the earlier you can start the pension the better, but in the same breath sometimes you have to do what's right for your situation as well. In financial planning we speak a lot about planning for kind of the short term, the medium term and the long term. And short term really for me is anything coming up in, let's say, today to that 4-year period. Medium term might be, say, 4 years to maybe 10-15, and then long term is obviously building up a pot maybe for retirement. That's that maybe 15-20 year out window depending on what age you are. But you kind of need to have a different pot of money or a different plan for each time frame, and sometimes it's a case of you need to prioritize one pot over another, and then you turn up the heat on another in lieu of reducing elsewhere. So obviously if somebody's going through a situation where they're saving for a mortgage and they're trying to get on the property ladder, it's a really challenging environment at the moment. So the advice that I always say to people is, look, forget about the pension, take the pressure off yourself, do what you need to do to get the house, don't put yourself under pressure, and once you have that and the dust has settled, you can then start focusing on the longer term stuff, the savings, the investments. Sometimes I even have meetings with clients and they come in to start the pension or they come in to invest money, and the advice I give them is to just forget about it. And it's why we always want to get a clear idea of exactly someone's situation and where they're at before we give any advice, because somebody has an idea that they might want to do something but it might not be in their best interest based on their specific situations. Yeah,
everyone's individual, and it's just, and even you could be one person one day, and like myself, you could be a completely different person the next day. So I think you just have to go with the flow, and I think not to stress, and just make sure that you are reaching out and asking for help, and kind of it's a roller coaster, but look, I definitely pension is probably maybe a couple of months down the line at the moment, but it's something to definitely think about. Like my husband has a pension in his work, and I got married as well last year, which was another so I gave up my job, got married and built a house. So anyone that's listening to the podcast, maybe don't do that. Like, it was just a little bit
not all in 1 year.
Probably not all in 1 year, but look, it was just circumstances, and it's just the way it worked out. And house and wedding in the same year was a lot, but look, we got through it. We're at the other side. We're still feeling the pinch a little bit from it all, but it's just nice as well. Like, we were paying quite high rent, and now we have our own house, and it's just that lovely feeling that, you know,
Yeah.
I'm very, very lucky and very, very grateful that we've gone through now, and we you know, went through the graft of saving and all the mortgages and all that, and we're kind of out the other side. And yeah, there's hope there for people that are in that position. You know,
Yeah.
you will get there. And yeah, house bills as well, they're good fun. And it's just trying to, like, things always have a contingency,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
things just don't go to plan. And I also probably realised I have a lot more expensive taste than I thought. You know,
Everyone goes over budget, don't
that's
they?
the
And you have
problem.
to meet somebody that has
Yeah.
stayed within their budget, like, you know.
Yeah, so look, I'm just very, you know, I'm you know, I go through the same financial woes as most people, and it's just, yeah, trying to get through them. And maybe, yeah, and look, you know, Alpha Wealth has definitely helped. Yeah, just that peace of mind. Like, even though you might know the answer, it's just good to get reassurance.
Sounding board, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of, sometimes I'm completely off the mark, but other times, you know, Nick does agree with me.
You spoke about the, I suppose, misconceptions that we have in Ireland, that you maybe need to be wealthy or you need to reach a certain age, whether that's 35, before reaching out to somebody who knows what they're talking about to get a bit of advice. Why do you think there's, from someone who's outside of the financial services industry, why do you think there's such a hesitancy maybe out there in Ireland for people to discuss finances or reach out to a professional or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe the education, you know, system that we could be maybe promoting that, you know, like I did business in up to junior cert. I did accounting in leaving cert. So I couldn't do accounts now if you put them in front of me, but, you know, credit and debit and all that. But it's, yeah, maybe just, I think a lot of it was, you know, it was very much, you know, I remember employment, you know, like statutory rights and things like that. And maybe we just need to do a bit more on, okay, what's tax relief, what can we claim tax relief on, what can, you know, what is a financial advisor firstly. I don't think I realised that maybe until, you know, well into my working life, and you know, what is available. Yeah, I just think sometimes, are we kind of just living for a good time, and then we get to a certain age and you're like, oh, I must grow up, you know. And I think actually you can be both. You can be having a great time and off, you know, touring the world and whatnot, but actually just putting a little bit away here and there, that can just, you know, make things a little bit easier for when you do settle down and try looking for a house and all of that. So I don't know, what's your opinion on it, David?
Yeah, like, I think a lot of it is, I suppose some people maybe have this idea that if they reach out to a financial planner or a financial advisor, they think that, you know, the advice is going to be, you know, you have to lock yourself inside doors and, you know, live this frugal lifestyle and put loads of money to pensions and stuff, which is absolutely not the case, you know. I suppose financial planning really is absolutely about balance, and it's about, you know, looking at all of the costs that life throws at you and all of the eventualities that happen, and saying, you know, what do I need to do now to get to those I suppose those aspirations that I might have in the future, and what moves should I be making now. But it comes with massive peace of mind knowing that, you know, you're putting the right amounts of money to the right places. You know, you're not overpaying tax, you're not, you know, paying for things you don't need. And I think, I suppose, when we do a lot of kind of future projections for clients and kind of show them what they are on track to achieve based on the actions that they're doing now, it actually allows them to enjoy their current life a lot more, because they know that once the money comes into their account from their salary or their business or whatever, you know, they put money out to their financial plans, they're then safe in the knowledge that they can enjoy everything else without feeling guilty, and they are doing things correctly, you know. So
yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, I think we just need to break that mindset of, you know, I can still have a good time, but, you know, have a financial planner maybe, you know, on the speed dial if I need them. But yeah, it's, I think, yeah, there's just a stigma perhaps.
definitely.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you get people saying, oh, I have a mortgage, I have a pension and work, you know, I'm okay for that kind of stuff, because they think, you know, it's always about selling you something.
Yeah.
It's not, you know. Some people, I'd say to, okay, you have a pension and work, but where's that pension invested? I don't know. How much you paying into it, or how much is your employer paying into it? I don't know. Do you know how much it's going to give you at 60 when you want to retire? Don't know. You know, so you do need
a lot of
advice.
unknowns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you do need advice, absolutely.
And even my husband now, he's a client of yours as well, and like, he definitely, you know, you like revenue, that my account, he is allergic, like he cannot. I don't know, there's just this thing that he just cannot go on it, and I'm sure he's not the only one. And actually when you do go on it, you realise, oh, I can claim for this and I can claim for that.
Yeah.
And I can, there's so many, like, there's money there that the government, owe you, and there's things, but like, he'd actually rather give money away than go on and try and, figure out all of that. So I think there's maybe that attitude as well, that, oh God, it's really difficult. How am I going to go on to this now? And how am I going to do this? And how am I going to do that? And like, I loved your video, like, there was Alpha Wealth videos about, the rent allowance. Like, because obviously that's a new thing. And we qualified for that. And actually it just gave us peace of mind that, it's actually easy. And, I did help him with it. But we both got our rent allowance back, and it was, real, help with everything that's going on with the house and everything. So just not missing those opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, I would nearly say that almost everyone in Ireland who is, working full time today should be eligible for some kind of tax back at the start of every year, just because there's been so many changes to what we can claim back on. For instance, like you mentioned, the rent credit, that's been increased to 750 per person. So let's say if you have a couple renting an apartment, that's €1,500 coming back. Obviously COVID, a lot of us now are working remotely or working online, so there is e-worker relief, which allows you to claim 30% back on your utility bills, like your broadband and your electricity, for any days that you work from home. A couple of €100 coming back there. A lot of something that a lot of people forget is flat rate expenses. So like if you're working in particular occupations, you can claim a credit or money back for the costs that you had to cover buying maybe equipment or clothes or something for working in that particular occupation. So there's so much stuff now that you can claim tax back, and it's really just make sure that you are operating as tax efficiently as possible, because nobody wants to be overpaying in tax.
Yeah, and it's not a big scary thing. Like, it's actually quite a workable website.
It is, yeah. And one thing, I think people have this big fear of revenue, but like they're actually really helpful. Like anytime I've phoned them, and I've had a lot of clients that have maybe logged things wrong on the online website, and when they contact revenue on the phone, they're really quick to sort it out, and they're really, really helpful. And people sometimes they're a bit hesitant to do an online tax return because they think revenue are going to look back at their records for the last 10, 20, 50 years, and they think that they're going to get landed with this big tax bill that they missed out on years ago. It's
no, I haven't had to ring them yet, but that's good to know, because again, a stigma perhaps.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's no, look, it's all these little things help put money back in our pocket, don't they?
Definitely. So obviously, Hazell, we've touched on so many different areas. I'm sure we could be here till tomorrow continuing to talk, but we better wrap it up at some point. So look, I just want to say thanks a million for your time. Look, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Obviously we wish you the best for the future, and we might get you on again. But if anyone is listening in and they're interested in your own story and your background, and I suppose the route you're on, where can they find you? Where can they follow your journey?
So generally, Instagram is my main platform. You'll find me. I haven't reached out to TikTok yet, so it's Vet on the Move with 2 O's, cows, or else Hazell Mullins. You'll find me on there, and you can just follow me day to day on the farm and out vetting and doing Veterinary Ireland bits and pieces as well. So yeah, it's a little journey I'm on, and hopefully people will follow along. And just to say thank you, David, and the Alpha Wealth team for inviting me on the podcast, for helping me through this journey. I really don't know where I would be without you guys, and that's just really, from the bottom of my heart. So really enjoyed working with you, and yeah, best of luck with everything.
Likewise, Hazell, thanks so much. And if anyone wants to find out a bit more on what we're up to at Alpha Wealth, you can follow a lot of the platforms we're on, like Instagram, YouTube, where we host a lot of online financial advisory webinars, as well as TikTok, which we're quite active on as well, doing videos giving people free financial advice with just some tips and takeaways on how they can improve their own situation. So feel free to check that out.